Greetings, Lucky Legends. Welcome to the dojo. My name is Lucky. This is Lucky Lad TV. I'm your host of this video, and it's time for another draft analysis. Now, I will be uploading these battles. However, the way that I'm going to start doing things is I'm planning on uploading team builders and battles in one video, since I am now going to be in 2 leagues at the same time. Soon to be 3, actually. I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to do things, but I'm going to do my best to upload everything. So you may get like you may get league spam on Saturday and Sunday. Like, you may end up getting 3 team builders and 3 battles on Saturday and Sunday respectively. But I definitely wanted to go over this draft because I absolutely love this draft. It is crazy power. I have everything that I need and some extra stuff that I want. So my first overall pick was Clefable. And the reason I went with Clefable is because it's a Stealth Rock setter, it's a T-Wave setter, it's a special setup sweeper, it's a bulky setup sweeper, it's a wish passer. It does so many things for my team. It gets Thunder Wave. I don't remember if I said that or not. But it's also an unaware Pokemon, which helps me against setup sweepers. And then, of course, it also has access to Magic Guard, which makes it a very dangerous Life Orb attacker because it doesn't take recoil. However, Clefable is by no means perfect on its own. It needs a partner. And no matter what set Clefable is running, one of the most common partners and best partners is Heatran. So I was actually able to grab the Cleftran core, which has 2 parts of a Fairy Dragon Steel core. And at this point I'm like, alright, now I just need a dragon. And I had a lot of different options for dragons, but I figured, you know what, I'll wait. There are a lot of good dragons that I can pick. I'm not too worried about which one I'm going to get. So, in continuation, I decided that I wanted to grab a bulky water type. Specifically a physically bulky water type. Because one of the things that I noticed about my team is that I had a lot of trouble with Excadrill, with those 2 Pokemon. We can handle pretty much anything else. Excadrill is not one of the Pokemon that we can handle. Because Excadrill has Earthquake and Iron Head, which bodies that core. Stab, Earthquake, and Iron Head. We also have a problem with Garchomp, same thing. So I knew that I wanted a physically defensive water type with access to Ice Beam, which most water types do. So I grabbed Knowledge, our Slowbro. It has a great move pool. It is a Regenerator Mon, which is absolutely fantastic. That's definitely something that I was excited to have on the team. Having a Pokemon with access to Regenerator increases its longevity so much. And also Slowbro has access to Slack Off, so it has good, reliable recovery, which is something that you will see throughout this draft. It also has access to Thunder Wave, Scald, which is number 2 move in the game, right after Thunder Wave. And it's just a phenomenal Pokemon with also great coverage with Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, Fire Blast, Scald, Surf, Psychic, Psyshock. I'm pretty sure it gets Shadow Ball and Signal Beam too. Let's look. Gets Grass Knot. Yeah, Shadow Ball, Signal Beam right there. It actually gets Seismic Toss, which I did not realize, although I think that's a tutor move from an earlier generation. But a lot of really great potential stuff coming out from Slowbro. But after that, I knew, since I had a fire and a water type, I wanted to grab a grass type. A grass type would also help with, you know, the ground weakness that I have, although Slowbro does not resist ground, it will easily take on any physically offensive ground type, simply because we can easily take 2 Earthquakes and fire back a super effective Scald. But I also wanted something that can set up spikes, toxic spikes, potentially absorb toxic spikes. So I grabbed Bouquet, our Roserade. Roserade is also a very, very dangerous special attacker because it has access to the ability Technician. Technician, which of course raises the power of moves with 60 base power or less to 1.5 times their original strength. So, the biggest use for this is of course Hidden Power. We get 90 power Hidden Powers. 90 base power on all of our Hidden Power moves, which is very, very dangerous. Especially when you're hitting things super effectively. You can, like, especially with, like, that Hidden Power Fire, hitting things that are quad weak to it, that extra 30 base power hits so hard. So hard. And, for example, like, if we're up against a Gyarados, which we do outspeed, we have a very nice base speed of 90. Hidden Power Electric will absolutely nuke that thing. We also have access to great utility in Leech Seed, Synthesis, right there, Synthesis, Swords Dance if we want, Stun Spore, Spikes, Toxic. So many great moves. Sleep Powder as well, Aromatherapy. This is a cleric for the team. We just have so many good options with Rosary. It's such a great mon. It was a great grab for tier 3, and I was so glad that it fell to us. Now, the next Pokemon, which you can already see on your screen, I could not believe this thing went to round 5. It is normally a first round pick in like every draft, every league that I'm in. Nobody picked it. It completes a Fairy Dragon Steel Core. It's another potential option for a Fire Water Grass Core. I grabbed Mega Charizard X. Now, the reason you pretty much never see me use Mega Charizard X is because the first time you bring it in, it's quad weak to Stealth Rock. Which, as you know, I personally really don't like that. I really don't. But I couldn't pass it up this time. And as you'll see with the rest of the draft, my team doesn't mind Stealth Rock and other hazards that much. We have plenty of Toxic Spike Absorbers, and we also have mons that just don't mind hazards as much, like Introvert Arc Lefable completely just ignores them with Magic Guard. And the first time it comes in, Iroh, our Mega Charizard X, does of course ignore spikes and Toxic Spikes, but this thing is a phenomenal setup sweeper and wall breaker. It actually makes it a very dangerous mixed attacker as well. It has access to a lot of setup moves. Swords Dance, it gets Belly Drum, it gets Flame Charge to boost its speed, it gets Dragon Dance of course, Tailwind as well. It learns Will-O-Wisp, which is good for utility. It has access to a great move pool. Things like Flare Blitz, Fire Punch, Earthquake, Dragon Claw. I believe it gets Outrage. I'm not 100% sure on that. It does not look like it gets Outrage, which actually doesn't really bother me. But, oh no, it does get Outrage. I looked right past it. It gets Overheat for nuking things from the special side as a surprise. Most people do run physical because of the Tough Claws boost. We don't have to. It gets Crunch if I feel like running Crunch. It gets Facade in case we get Statused, in case I'm worried about getting Statused. This thing is one of the best Megas in the format, and I'm planning on abusing this thing like crazy. My draft is disgusting. This is probably my favorite draft that I have ever done. As I'm thinking about it, this is definitely my favorite draft that I have ever done, because the variety that we have is amazing. So after Iroh, I wanted another water type. One that was not weak to dark. It didn't have to resist dark. I just didn't want it to be weak to dark. I also didn't really want it to be weak to Ghost, just because Ghost spam can be dangerous if you aren't careful. So I decided to grab Cthulhu, our Tentacruel. Now, Tentacruel serves very two different, but also very interesting purposes. Aside from obviously being a Pokemon that can set up and absorb Toxic Spikes, as well as a Pokemon with access to a pretty wide variety of moves, with access to, Poison Stab, Water Stab, as well as Ice Beam, Giga Drain, Dazzling Gleam, which is great for utility, and Hex. The other thing about Tentacruel is, of course, it is a Rapid Spinner, which is very important in the League format. But the other thing that it does that's very interesting is it has Clear Body. And Clear Body prevents my opponent from using Defog. Because here's the thing about Defog. Defog's primary effect is lowering your opponent's evasion by 1 stage. That is the primary effect. The secondary effect is removing hazards. So, if you can't lower my stat, then you aren't able to remove the hazards, because of course the primary effect always goes first. The secondary effect goes second. But if the primary effect fails, then the secondary effect never happens. So, Tentacruel, in addition to being able to Rapid Spin hazards away, prevents my opponent from defogging hazards away, which is a very cool combination and something that I'm very excited to use. It also has knockoff for utility if I feel like using that, but the ability to remove hazards and prevent my opponent from removing them is a unique combination that no other Pokemon have. There's a Pokemon that does actually the opposite of that. Well, not the opposite. A similar thing to that, which I'll get into in just a second. But I knew that I also wanted a Defogger. I didn't want anybody sniping it. You can see some stuff here. I don't know how far down you can see. But the next Pokemon we grabbed was Oasis, our Flygon. It is the best Defogger in the game. The reason being, and I'll be going over this when I do Lucky's Looking Glass, but Flygon takes 6.25% from Stealth Rock. It does not get affected by spikes, it does not get affected by toxic spikes, and it has reliable recovery. That is a combination of things that no other Defoggers have. The only other Pokemon that can boast that type of stuff are Latios, Latias, Gligar, and Gliscor. However, they take 12.5% from Stealth Rock, so Flygon edges them out by just a tiny bit, by taking a little bit less from hazards. Now, Flygon is, of course, a good choice Scarf user. It's a good choice Band user. It has great special coverage. It has great physical coverage. It has utility in U-turn. It doesn't set up Stealth Rocks, but it can set up Tailwind, which is something that, could come in handy if that arises. But like I said, a lot of good coverage. Choice Specs Flygon is nothing to ignore, because even though it only has that base 80 special attack, its coverage with special moves is even better than its physical coverage, with access to Boom Burst, Bug Buzz, Draco Meteor, Earth Power, Fire Blast, Flamethrower, Signal Beam, even though you have Bug Buzz. It has a lot of really good coverage, and of course that Defog, the best Defogger in the game. Now, similar to Tentacruel, Frostmourne, our Frostlass, prevents our opponent from setting up hazards. However, unlike Tentacruel, Tentacruel can set up hazards as well, but Frostmourne, our Frostlass, can set up hazards and prevent my opponent from setting them up. Tentacruel sets up hazards, gets rid of hazards, and prevents my opponent from getting rid of them. But Frostlass is, of course, a spin blocker, which is something that I definitely wanted on my team. Frostlass is also a good mixed attacker. It's attack and special attack, although, Showdown does that automatically. Its attack and special attack are the same. It also hits a nice base speed of 110. Speed time with the Lottie twins. However, if they are running HP Fire, we do outspeed them, which is nice. Actually, at level 50, I'm not sure if that's the case. No, at level 50, it doesn't make a difference. Actually, it does, now that I think about it. because when you do that, oh no, it doesn't make it. Wait, so that's the max right here. But if we do that, yes, we do outspeed them if they are running HP Fire. I wasn't 100% sure on that at level 50, but I wanted to check. But a lot of great moves to choose from. We have Hex, Ice Beam, we have Crunch, we have Body Slam if we want to run that, Facade, we have Hidden Power, of course, Shadow Ball, Signal Beam, Sucker Punch, which you might see. We have Ice Shard as well to pick off certain threats, Thunder Wave and Thunderbolt. Thunder Wave is definitely something I could see myself doing, and Trick as well, tricking my opponent, a Choice Scarf or Choice Specs, Choice Band even, something like that. But a lot of really good utility and a lot of really good coverage on that team. But just a lot of really cool stuff that we can do here, especially with also a very fast taunt user, which is something I forgot to mention, as well as access to spikes. Spikes, of course, one of the... Well, I mean, there are only 3 damaging hazards in the game. And, well, technically 2. Toxic Spikes doesn't technically damage your opponent. It, statuses them. But Spikes, obviously being able to deal a clean 25% to anything that is grounded with 3 layers. So, definitely something I could see myself doing a lot of interesting, a lot of different things with. But at this point, with the 8 mons that I had, I was comfortable with my draft. I just wanted a few things. I wanted a normal type to deal with ghost spam. I wanted a fighting type to, deal with normal types and stuff like that. I needed a dark type because I wanted knockoff stab. And then I just needed something. The last mon, I just needed something. I didn't know what I wanted for a while, but I'll break down these picks as I got them. The first one I grabbed was Scrafty. I grabbed Scrafty because it fits it fits Dark and Fighting Stab, which were 2 things that I definitely wanted / needed. It also has great coverage and access to setup moves. A few different types of setup moves, actually. The other thing about Scrafty is that it has good natural bulk to it. It has base 115 defense and special defense, so it's pretty hard to one-shot it unless you're a really, really strong attacker, or unless you hit it with a fairy-type move, of course. However, with Dragon Dance, we can outspeed most fairy types if we get one of those off, as well as, Drain Punch, Facade. It has Fake Out, which is... I don't necessarily see myself using Fake Out that often. However, it is good for utility purposes. I've used Scrafty before, not in League format, but I have used it before. I'm comfortable with it. I like it. It has really, really, really great coverage. Pretty much nothing can straight up wall it. I could definitely see myself running something like an Assault Vest Scrafty if most of my opponent's threats against this mon are special attackers, because we already, like I said, have that phenomenal 115 base special attack. Now, I knew I needed a normal type now. I need a normal type. As you can see, our fighting weakness is kind of there, but we do have those 2 poison types and Slowbro. And Frostmourne, actually, which is immune, but I wanted a normal type to go with Ghost Spam. Right now, our only Ghost Resist is Chief, our Scrafty. So I grabbed Fido, our Stoutland. I was debating between Stoutland and Ambipom. The reason I went with Stoutland is because, 1, it has access to Pursuit, which is something that I really wanted on this team, and 2, it has access to Intimidate, which helps us with physical threats. It is also a Weather Buster. It has access to the Sand Rush ability, so if my opponent brings sand, we have our own Sandmon. Something that can easily take a hit and dish one back. It also has access to Thunder Wave, which I did not realize until I looked. Thunderwave Stoutland, I really want to bring it sometime this season. I don't know if I'll be able to, but I really hope I can. As for other coverage moves, of course it has Wild Charge, it has Surf, However, not the best special attack. Superpower, Play Rough, Crunch, Pursuit, Iron Head, Ice Fang, Fire Fang, Thunder Fang. Wild Charge is better though. Facade, of course, which I will most likely be running rather often. And Return, as I said. Also Roar. This thing is a phaser, which is something that I wanted on the team. Now, at this point, I had pretty much everything that I wanted on the team. I really wasn't missing anything. However, I had a bit of a fighting weakness that I wanted to patch up just to reduce... Sorry, not a fighting weakness. A bit of a ground weakness that I wanted to patch up. Because at this point, we only had one ground resist. And that was good old Flygon. Flygon was our only ground resist. Granted, we do have Slowbro, which can take ground type attacks pretty well. However, we had 2 ground weaknesses and then 1 double ground weakness. So I wanted something that at least resisted ground. It doesn't have to be bulky, but I wanted it to resist ground. So I grabbed Pinsir. I don't know how well Pinsir's going to work out. It has 2 really good abilities and then 1 decent ability. Hypercut is decent. It has Mold Breaker, which I could see myself using. Then it, of course, has Moxie, which is very dangerous. So it does make a good Scarf Moxie late game sweeper, similar to Heracross. It also has it has a phenomenal move pool. Don't get me wrong. It also has my favorite move in the game, which is Storm Throw, which is a 100% accurate fighting type move that always crits. So this thing beats stuff like Miltank, which tries to set up curses on me. It beats stuff like Snorlax, which tries to set up curses on me. And the other interesting thing that I found is Endure. This thing gets Endure, which could be very interesting if I run like Endure Salicberry with Moxie to outspeed threats that are faster than me but aren't scarfed. And this thing also gets Stealth Rock, which is cool. I'm very interested in seeing how Pinsir will work. Like I said, it has great coverage. It doesn't have U-turn, but it does have, setup moves, like I said, as well as, utility moves like Knock Off, Quick Attack. I'm very, very interested in seeing how Pinsir works. Probably more than any other Pokemon on this team, I'm interested in seeing how Pinsir works, because Pinsir is probably the Pokemon that I have the least experience using, because I don't like using Mega Pinsir because of the 4x weakness to Stealth Rock. But that is our draft. I want to thank you all so very much for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe down below. It's very much greatly appreciated. But with that, I'm going to get about. Best of luck out there. I will see you all soon. Goodbye.